Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about plants we're betting on here at Pretty and Green for 2023. First up is a plant that was very popular in 2022. It is the Burle Marx Flame. This is the Monstera dilacerata, and it is an absolutely gorgeous plant, especially when it becomes mature. It gets its name from being the Burle Marx Flame because it has, in mature form, essentially like a Monstera deliciosa leaf, but has like a bit of a flame pattern in it. It's very, very beautiful. The tough side with this plant is that it's very slow to grow and slow to propagate. So that can be a challenge, but I think it's gonna remain in its popularity. It's gonna be propagated a little bit more, but I think people are gonna keep seeing the beauty in this plant. I love it because it is really unique looking, especially in the mature form. It's really hard to find. And I would say the prices are pretty much stabilizing on it. So it really hit its hype cycle last year, I would say, and maybe in 2021. Really overpriced, and it came down a bit at the end of this year. So I think next year it'll kind of stabilize a bit. It is hard to propagate, as I said, and slow to grow, so that will keep the prices elevated a little bit more. But this is a great plant. I would look out for more in 2023. And you've probably heard the name Burle Marx used a lot before, and a lot of plants named after him. He was actually a landscape architect out of Brazil. So that's why a lot of these plants are named after him. And on each one of these plants, I'm going to go over why I love it and then what I think is going on with the price curve. Do I think it's increasing? Do I think it's going down? Or do I think it's kind of stabilizing? As some of you might have seen on TikTok and IG, I finally got myself a Monstera obliqua, and this is essentially the epitome of a plant that is stabilizing in price, gone through the craziest hype cycle in price, and now we're down to just a couple hundred or a few $100s for a cutting of the obliqua. And you can really see how beautiful and delicate this plant is. I'm starting to make shorts over here on YouTube Shorts, as well as TikTok, as well as Instagram, so check us out there if you don't already, at Pretty and Green Plants. But this obliqua really is a gorgeous plant, kind of finicky, has some brown leaves. She's not on this list. I just figure I'd give you guys an example of a plant that's kind of stabilizing in her price curve. Okay, next up is this beauty you guys have seen before. This is the Philodendron quad color. This is a really, really gorgeous plant, and I hope the camera captures the variegation on the leaves and the striping, and also like the back marble sides. They're like marmalade, jam colored, and just all the different colorings on this plant. It's really beautiful. That's why I love it. It's massive, maybe 3 or 4 feet across. This is a cutting. And like, look at how vigorous it is. It has red roots, which is always fun on the philodendrons, like the strawberry shakes, pink princess, they'll have like pink and red roots. I think it's just a really exciting thing to watch those different roots come out instead of just being beige or cream colored. And I think this plant, you might see a slight increase in the price because they're not that prevalent. I really don't see these for sale. They're really hard to buy, but I think that they'll continue increasing in their popularity as people see the beauty of them. Although I will say some people tend to stray away from these larger plants that kind of take more square footage, because a lot of us are gardening in our homes and this is taking up a lot of real estate. But I think it's an awesome plant. Philodendron quad color, plant to look out for in 2023. Okay, here's an exciting one that looks a little banged up right now, but I promise you this plant in mature form is absolutely beautiful. This is an Epipremnum pinnatum marble, but it has these really beautiful, kind of like almost like Radiatum tetrasperma like leaves with crazy variegation on them. I just got her shipped, so she's a little banged up. Don't pay any attention to that. But we're starting into Epipremnums, and as well as, you know, the Monstera and Philodendron that we've been doing for a while, but we've now opened up to Epipremnum, starting to propagate and grow these plants. And this is just a really beautiful plant that caught my eye. It grows fast, it propagates fast, and I think I love it just for its color and the texture in the leaf and the leaf shape. It's just a very beautiful plant. The larger XL kind of giant golden pothos, when they start fenestrating through the leaves, I think really speaks to me and catches my eye. Typically, you know, a pinnatum will have pinnate shaped leaves, but when they get older, they start to put like almost like a Burle Marx Flame sort of shape to the leaf. And I would say the pricing on her is pretty much stable. She's probably gone through a bit of a hype curve and maybe is flattening, maybe a slight increase over the next spring, but but I think this is going to be a plant that makes a lot of people happy. All right, here's one of my favorite plants in the greenhouse. This is a Syngonium confetti. I don't believe it's the milk confetti, but to be honest, there's such a small difference between milk confetti and confetti. Technically, it's a stem coloring. You're supposed to see little pink striping along the stem on the petioles. The leaf stem, that's what a petiole is. I'm not fully seeing that, so I'm not going to call it that. This is like a $20 Syngonium and just absolutely beautiful. Hard to tell from the $100 or $200 milk Syngonium, milk confetti Syngonium. And I think this plant has eased off its hype curve. So milk confetti Syngoniums have been going for like the 300 to 400s in the last few years. We're down into like the mid hundreds here in the US in late 2022. And so I think we're stabilizing. They're super easy to propagate and grow. And it just is a really pretty plant. We sell this for like 20, 25 bucks at one of the Albo shows. So I think this is a plant you'll see more of. People start seeing the beauty. I like it more than something like the Syngonium Albos. It's kind of one of my favorite Syngoniums. This one in the pink spot illusion, they're great. And it's affordable. You can't help but love affordability. I think that's when this plant became so beautiful to me, is when it was no longer $4,000 or $10,000 in 2019 and 20, but when the obliqua came down into the few hundreds of dollars, all of a sudden she was so pretty to me. So that's kind of how I work, and I think the confetti is also up there with plants that just need to come down a little bit from their hype cycle, and now I'm interested in them. Okay, this plant, you're either gonna hate it or you're gonna love it. This is a Philodendron Tortum, and I think it's come down off of its hype cycle. This is a unique and rare looking philodendron. Like I said, that you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. When I first saw it, I was not a fan, but it started to grow on me. It just has really unique leaves, and it's just something you don't see a lot. And I think it's really cool that it is indeed even a philodendron. It grows kind of slow, propagates a little bit slow, but it is in tissue culture, so you should see more of it. Typically what you'll see in a lot of these plants is either it went through a crazy hype cycle last year, so then it'll be overly propagated this year, or you'll have plants that are popular and then go into TC if it's available, TC being tissue culture, and then those plants will be overly produced, and then you'll see prices come down. I think Tortum might go through that life cycle, is when it unfurls, the leaves, they're all tightly compact and wound up, and then they slowly like unwind in this weird way. So it's just an odd and unique plant, and I think we've kind of come down off the hype curve. We should be stable. That's probably a similar pattern you're seeing in a lot of these plants. Why we're betting on them is they're stable or slightly increasing. We don't want to catch a falling knife like we've done with a Monstera Adansonii, Variegata, and a few other ones. If you buy them when they're just too hyped, you will just sometimes pay the consequences of chasing down such a hyped up plant. And here's a plant that's very near and dear to me. This is the Heartleaf Variegata, or the Philodendron Hederaceum Variegata. This is the mother plant, and this is a beautiful cutting that came off of it recently. I had to get close and show you guys just the patterning on the leaf. It's really something special. I think these plants are really underrated. They grow super fast. They have a beautiful pattern on the leaves. It's relatively stable variegation. Typically it does come back into the plant, but I have seen some leaves go more green, but overall you end up getting this back, especially with some pruning on your plants, especially timely and accurate pruning. We've talked about this in the last philodendron video. Cut your plants at the right location. There is a right location, there is a wrong location. And I would say the philodendron, the Hederaceum Variegata, is probably stable, if not increasing just a little bit. A lot of plants went through their hype cycle last year, and this plant should be widely available. I know we're gonna have a bunch of them at the Albo shows through the year. It's just a really fun plant to grow and watch vine. It grows really fast, propagates fast. Next one up is one I actually don't have in-house, but it's the Philodendron Golden Dragon. This plant went absolutely crazy last year in terms of price. You can see it priced for into the thousands of dollars, but usually when that happens, people take a lot of cuttings of them, so I think you'll see them a lot more available this year. But that plant really probably has peaked in its hype cycle and is kind of like stable-ish high, but it might come down a bit more because it should be still in the thousands of dollars. But I think it's a really beautiful plant. People don't really know where it came from in terms of what species of philodendron, but there are guesses that it came from a bipennifolium because it has that longer lobe-like leaf shape, but it is from Thailand and it is a variegated plant. I would guess that it doesn't look that stable in terms of its variegation, but I'm not really sure about that. That is simply just a guess. One of those plants that you need to cut in the right place to propagate. Keep an eye out for the Philodendron Golden Dragon more in 2023. I love it because of the coloring and the largeness of that plant. It's a very enormous variegated plant. I think those are really rare to come by and really beautiful when you get the right specimens. Okay, next up is the Philodendron Radiatum Variegata. I've shown this plant, I believe, once before on the channel, but this is a really large variegated philodendron, kind of like the golden dragon, like I was talking about. Quite rare, but like with everything rare, eventually will come back down to earth, and that's what I would say the price is probably doing, probably stabilizing. But it is really hard to find, I would say. Not a lot of people sell this plant. I've never taken a cutting of it. I'm simply just growing the mother out, so I'm nervous as hell to take a cutting. But these aerial roots here are giving me some encouraging signs. I think I love her just for the crazy like patterning. Like that's a proper Aurea leaf. Like I wish the Monstera deliciosa Aurea looked like that, but it has some of the most beautiful coloring on the leaves. Sometimes they come out just lime green, but other times they have a gorgeous patterning through them. And it's just a vigorous, strong plant. I love to watch grow. She grows kind of slowly, maybe medium, just really strong and hardy. It's quite the centerpiece or statement piece. If you have her on her own to kind of take up 4 to 6 square feet on her own, it's an awesome plant. So, okay, next up are these tiny little plants here. Now I'll put up a big picture of this plant, but this is the Philodendron Caramel Marble, and these tiny plants are from tissue culture. I hope you can see into this jar because I can't open it yet, but this is a teeny little caramel marble, and then this is a little seedling. Doesn't have a ton of variegation in it, which is a little stressful to me because this was a few $100s, but the Philodendron Caramel Marble is one coming up in popularity. It's essentially like a gorgeous variegated pink ring of fire-ish looking plant. It's very large and variegated and is just absolutely beautiful. And I think it's going to become more available to the general public because it is in tissue culture. Now it's tough to get a proper variegated tissue like this one. This may or may not have variegation, we'll see. Now that it is in tissue culture, it should be increasing in supply. So for number 9, on plants for 2023, I would say the Philodendron Caramel Marble is going to be more available in probably the few hundreds of dollars price range, so coming down a bit but really flattening off that multi-$1,000 per plant number, which is just absolutely insane for plants. I think that's reasonable to say here, and that's kind of where I'm at and how we run our business is we don't buy plants that are in the tens of thousands of dollars. Really even above 1,000 it starts to kind of just be a little bit ridiculous, and we know that once they're 1,000 or rather 2,000 usually, it takes them pretty quickly to come back down into about $1,500 to $800. And I'm going to end the video with a plant that I'm actually really excited for because it is in tissue culture now, which is rare because it is a Monstera deliciosa, and that is the Monstera Mint. This plant, I've been very tempted in many instances on Facebook groups to buy a cutting of the Monstera Mint, but they're still in the multi-thousands of dollars and it feels shady. I don't know, whenever you're trying to buy one, just because it's so expensive for a plant. I'm not exactly sure if the variegation is stable. They also call this plant the white monster, but generally it's like that minty flecked looking monstera that is just honestly beautiful, but is really hit that hype curve in 2020. I think this plant was going for $10,000 or $20,000, and now I'm seeing cuttings go for between like $1,500 and $2,000. Tissue culture is still like $500 per piece. So it is coming down, but it should be flattening or at least declining here soon. And I think I just love it because it's a variegated monstera. And it's just kind of to add to the albo, the aurea, the Thai constellation. The mint monstera is just another kind of tenant of the variegated monstera. And since it is in tissue culture, I know that that should mean it has more of a stable variegation, or else these tissue labs in Asia wouldn't be wasting their time on it. If you guys did learn something new and or like the video, please go down and like the video or click subscribe. It would mean a lot to us, and we make a new video about plants every Saturday. So we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.